No need to worry, I know what time it is. This is awesome. Thank you all for all of you who've been participating in that. We're going to dive right in to what we started last week, which is, I want you to read with me, look closely at Isaiah chapter 43, verses 18 and 19. This idea that we put together with Advent, the idea that Advent is about the coming and thinking about the coming of the birth of Jesus that we celebrate again. But it's also about all of life that's going to be lived right after that we're going to continue to live. And so in Isaiah 43, 18 and 19, it reminds us, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am, God, I am, doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. I ask you to consider what it is for all of us, whether we're in a moment in our lives where we are worried about the things we just got to keep doing and how we might be somehow new life, new birth in me, in the situation, even though the situation doesn't change that much. Or whether there could be complete new opportunities, that something could change and shift and I could go in another direction, do another thing. Or whether I'm overcoming obstacles. The obstacles in relationship, the obstacles physically, the obstacles of age, of illness, of injury, of disease, of things that are bigger than I can handle, or things that are just really about me. That in all of these ways, where am I longing to see some kind of new birth, something to spring up? Where is it that, as I enter into this season, where is it that I am caught up, stuck in the way it's always been? In what happened to me back then? And how I've defined myself before? What could it be in this Advent season to see Jesus' birth, not just as an opportunity for the normal celebrations, but that birth to remind me that God is always birthing new. And that most often when God is doing something new, it seems like it's in a wilderness where I could never cut my way through it, or in a desert, in a wasteland, that it's so barren there doesn't seem to be any life. How could it possibly happen? And so last time, I shared with you a story from Judges chapter 13. A mom and a dad who had gone a long time and couldn't have that baby. And how they longed for new birth. And how that longing for new birth led them to prayer and presence. And I invited you to spend this week, to take a candle. And I gave you a specific prayer on our notes. Maybe you were here last week and you had it. Maybe you saw it in the constant contact. If you don't have one, I have a few left over from last time. But to say, what would happen if you started this week connecting over this kind of idea that, one, God, I'm asking for your help. And two, God, I am trusting that you graciously love me. And in the belief that you are wanting to help, that you create new life, that I can trust that the love isn't conditional, the love isn't just on my good days, then that I could ask, please, help me, God, to know how to nourish myself in the situation, how to nurture myself in the situation. Help me to heal and in ways grow in oneness and in wholeness, that I'd be more prepared for whatever this new life comes, whatever form it takes, whatever you spring up that is full of your love and filling me with your love and coming through me as love to other people. Would you help me? And in that story, they gave an offering and there was a flame and they connected with God through the flame and prayer and presence and connection. And I wonder if you tried that this week. God started with it. What would it be to continue it on and to think, what would it be? For some of us, though, the challenge is the story today. In 1 Samuel, the first 20 verses of 1 Samuel, we're not going to read them all, but there's another couple. This is Elkanah and Hannah. He has two wives. Penny's his other wife, and she's able to conceive and have several children. And it may seem out of touch because, this dude with two wives, but we understand rivalry. We understand pain. We understand that Hannah longs to also just have a baby. Can I just have some new life? And that she's in a situation where inside of her own even family unit, it's breaking her and destroying her. Let's see how it's described. Pick up with me in verse 4. It says that this family, that they go on a yearly basis to a place called Shiloh to go to a worship experience where they make offerings and that they do. It's not yet the temple, because the temple doesn't come until the time of Solomon and David, but it is currently a place, a shrine, a place of worship where priests are, and they help and they go. And it says in verse 4, whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Penny, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her. And the Lord had closed her womb. And again, this is the phrase because of an understanding of God being in charge of all things, but we'd be really careful. In no way does Jesus communicate to us that there's a God who's punishing her or rewarding her by this process. That he's not closed it because God's just being arbitrary or God doesn't care or she didn't earn it. But that because we attribute everything to God. But this is the situation of her life. The longing that she has for this kind of new life and the inability for her to make it happen. Go on a little bit further. It says in verse 6, because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. When Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband, Elkanah, would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Now, the part I just didn't want to miss, no matter what our time is for the chance, because when we think about where we are and what we hope to see happen and how impossible it might seem and how it has lasted, we also get caught up ourselves in this kind of comparison and competition. Why am I sick and they are not? Why did the bad thing happen to me and not to them? How come? Where is it? God, are you punishing me? How is the world? What could have I done differently? We get caught up because it's not just from us. It can be surrounded by us. And maybe you just came out of a Thanksgiving and maybe you're going to go into a Christmas or being in the room with that group of people just reminds you you're not as good as your brother and you're not as pretty as your sister and you didn't turn out the way we wanted you to. And the end result, which is so crucial for us in the midst of this, because this isn't just about take your great life and make it better. The result we hear is that she is in an experience. We're going to have an experience in just a minute of being able to share a little bit of a meal around the table, the bread and the juice. They make a sacrifice and they have some of the animal left over, and her husband loves her. He knows her pain and he loves her and he tries to give her a double portion, but she sits at the table so in pain because it won't work, that her tears are so thick, she cannot see anything to be grateful for. She can't see anything to be hopeful for. She can't see any reason to continue to live. She can't see any reason to continue to fight, to continue to try to get better, to continue to try to get that relationship restored, to try over at that thing. She can't see any of it for her own tears. She can't eat. She can't consider. It doesn't matter that she's loved. And maybe that's the challenge. All of us sitting here, we may be in such pain that even where it is true that we know God loves us, and we know a couple of people love us, and we know people say that they love us, we can't feel it. It's not real. We can't taste it because we are so broken inside by the stuff that just won't turn out right that we cannot possibly move forward. That we compare ourselves to where it could have been or where we thought it would be. We compare ourselves to others who we think we're better or not better than. We have voices in our heads, in our hearts, in our communities, on our little screens. And they lead us not to just be downhearted. They lead us to be so devastated that we can't even dream. We can't hope. We can't find peace. There is no joy. And what are we going to do with that? And so this lady, Hannah, she's in one of these settings again. She's being reminded again. She's devastated and brokenhearted again. And she decides she's going to get up, make a little path, and pray. And she goes to wherever it is in this area where it is near a door frame where Eli, the priest, is there. And she begins to pray. It says in verse 10, let's skip to 10. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. And I just wonder, maybe there's a few of us. This past week, we didn't do Jay's little candle prayer thing, partly because we cannot risk opening up our hearts enough that we start to cry. We can't risk because it is killing us inside that we are getting older and we can't control it anymore. We're losing the things that we thought we could do. Our bodies aren't working anymore. We thought by now we would have restored that relationship with our kid. We thought we would be able to move on with life after that grief. We thought that starting out and fresh, being young and being okay, but it would start to work out. But wherever we are, young or old, if we ever risked actually asking God to do something new and that something could help us along this path, that we never stop the crying, that we never stop the hurt, that we couldn't eat and we wouldn't want to go on, and so we just don't. And she begins to pray and weep bitterly, and it is so overwhelming that Eli says, "Is that woman drunk?" Her mouth is moving, but the words aren't coming out. She's shaking. It's a party atmosphere around this serving of the meal and the sacrifices. People could have overindulged. It would make sense, but she's saying, "Oh, no, that's not the thing. Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea how this hurts and what I long for." And so, very similar to our previous story, she says, if God would just give me this child, I would devote it. I would nurture this child in the way of God. I would nourish myself and this child in the way of God. If this child would come along, I would devote it to God so that God's work in a place where people are in deep need, I would do that. And she's going to give birth to Samuel, and Samuel is going to play that role with his whole life. She's going to fulfill that promise. But in her prayer and in her promise, if I could just see that there is some form of new life, that God is near, that this isn't how it ends, that I could start again, then I would give all that love back to him. And Eli says in verse 17, Eli answered her in her pain and said, "Go in peace. May God, the God of Israel, grant you what you have asked of him." They may sound like simple words, but I want you to hear profoundly. He's giving a priestly blessing, and his blessing is, yes, the God that you are seeking, he has not closed things down for you. He's the God of Isaiah who is springing things up. It's not too late and it's not over. And even though you can't currently see through your tears, there is something on the other side. And he says, would you go forward as if you have the peace of God, the harmony of all the oneness, that God is with you and for you? Would you go forward and let the brokenness inside become more wholeness so that you might be able to see that he is still going to use you and do things in you? And it may not look anything like you can imagine, and it may not match what you did before, but you have breath in your lungs, and so there is still moments of being loved and loving and navigating this, no matter how hard the wilderness, no matter how barren the desert, navigating what's in front of you is possible with God. Would you go in peace? Would you go believing that it would guard your heart so that you could risk your heart? And it says that she went from there and ate a meal. And that's what we're going to ritually do, figuratively do in just a second. I'm going to invite you that whether that makes sense to you today, whether it resonates with you, or whether it's just your preparation because you're around somebody who it's resonating with. There may be somebody who's not in this room, but you're going to spend time with them. Because that's where a lot of us are, a lot of our lives, even when we're hiding it really well. And what it would mean for us to pray and take heart and come and eat of this bread and drink of this cup and believe that it reminds us that God is near, God is with us, God's strength could be in me, that it could secure in me a chance to round my heart with peace, fill my heart with hope, even though it feels like that will never come because it's impossible and I don't even want to think about it. And she came and she partook of her meal, and then they got up the next morning and they worshiped again, and they went home, and over the course of time, new life sprung up. So for you and me, in just a minute, I'm just going to invite you, whether the same words of the prayer that I gave before, whether just your own heart, whether on your behalf or for somebody else's, in this moment, would you be willing in prayer, in presence with God, to open yourself to the possibility of whatever that new life of God springing up could be, and how it's going to help you navigate the next few days or months or years as you recover or don't recover, as it gets restored or not quite the way you want. But in the midst of it, how we could become people who are more whole and more one and more loved and more loving. What a gift that would be that God would give us if we would just open it up this Christmas. God, in just a second, we get the chance to physically just walk forward and taste some bread and taste some juice. Let it be so much more than just a taste. Let the action of coming forward be a step for us in believing that we can go in peace moving forward, that you see us and you hear us and you love us, that you wipe our tears, that the feelings that we have that we even want to bury and not let anyone else know about, that all the ways that we sit back and compare and compete and feel irritated by those who it seems to go better for, would you help us heal? Would you help us go in peace? Would you help us keep preparing and moving forward, believing? And would you, God, help us to open this gift of your presence in a way that changes us so it changes everything this Christmas. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.